In this lesson, I'll walk through the steps of installing the .NET Core framework and tools on Windows, and in the next lesson, I'll do the same thing, but on a Mac. And I usually don't pre-record the video clips and then come back and record narration over them, but this was a really long process, so I decided that taking this approach would be the most efficient ways to demonstrate this. So the first step is to navigate to http://.net to acquire the tools. And once you're on that page, you click the Download .NET Core 1.0 link on the page. So the next step then is to download and install Visual Studio 2015 Update number 3 if you haven't already done so, and then install the .NET Core 1.0 for Visual Studio. Now for this video, we're going to use Visual Studio to do most of our work, but honestly, we won't even open up Visual Studio. We'll just simply use Notepad and the command line interface tools. The web page suggests that you could use Visual Studio Code, the free code editor from Microsoft, as well as the .NET Core SDK for Windows. I'm not going to show how to install it or use that approach. And hopefully this goes without saying that you'll already need to have Visual Studio 2015 Community Edition or greater installed before you actually click on that link to download and run the update. Otherwise, you will see an error message like you see on screen right now. So just make sure that you have Visual Studio 2015 already installed before you attempt to run Update 3. If you don't already have it installed, you can go back to the previous tab and there's a link to Visual Studio. You can open it in a new tab and then download Visual Studio Community and kick off the installation process after the Bootstrap has actually downloaded. And I'm not going to show how to do all of this. Hopefully you've already got Visual Studio installed before we get this far. Once you've successfully downloaded and installed Update 3 for Visual Studio, now it's time to download the .NET Core 1.0 for Visual Studio. Hopefully you don't see any errors. We'll come back to this in just a moment. And assuming you don't experience errors, you'll be able to agree to the terms and conditions and then begin the installation. However, there is a potential issue. If you're like me, you might see the error message whenever you're attempting to install the .NET Core 1.0 for Visual Studio. You'll see that the setup failed and something about detecting that Visual Studio 2015 Update 3 may not be completely installed. Please repair Visual Studio 2015 and so on. Fortunately, there's an easy fix for this. And for a little bit more background, you want to see this article with the link to it on screen right now. Microsoft.NET Core 1.0 VS 2015 Tooling Preview Update 2 fails to install with a specific error and how to fix it. But in a nutshell, essentially what we'll need to do is run a specific command at the command line that you see on screen right now. And once you type in this entire command, including the flag to skip the VSU check or the Visual Studio Update check, and you set that equal to 1, then you'll be able to continue to install the tooling preview. And as you can see now, we're able to proceed, agree to the license terms and conditions, and then continue to actually install the tooling. And it will take a few minutes. I speeded up the process here, but after you finish that dialog, you can attempt to actually invoke the .NET driver and just use the help command. And if you're like me, you'll see that we get a .NET is not recognized as an internal or external command. In that case, you probably want to reboot your computer. So that's an optional step, but you probably want to reboot right now. Now, in my case, I rebooted the computer, and now I'm going to launch the command prompt again and type in the same command, .NET-help. This will show me a list of all the commands and the optional arguments for those commands. That lets me know that it's working. Also, since we're just getting started, it might be helpful to ensure that we're working on the same version of the .NET Core. So I'm going to type in .NET -- version. And then I also want to, it might be helpful to see what information about my system by typing .NET -- info, and that'll give me not only what version of the command line tools and the product itself, but then also what runtime, the operating system, version, platform, and then something called an RID, which we'll talk about later. Next up, let's take a look at the directory structure and find out where our tools are actually installed. For the sake of completeness, if you want to find where the .NET Core is installed, take a look in your C:/program file /.net. Then you'll look for a specific version of the SDK. In this case, I'm looking in the preview version. I can look at all the runtimes that have been installed locally and so on. And finally, I want to make sure that the Visual Studio templates are in place. Not that we'll use them much for this series, but I just want to make sure that they're installed correctly. So I'm going to pop open Visual Studio. And I want to get to the New Project dialog either by going File, New Project, or just go to the New Project link on the home page, on the Start page. And on the left-hand side, I want to go to the Installed Templates, Visual C# .NET Core. And then I should be able to see 3 templates: the class library, the console application, and the ASP.NET Core web application template. And so if you are able to invoke the .NET command line interface tool and then see the Visual Studio templates, then honestly, you're ready to proceed to lesson number 4. So to recap, it's easy to acquire and install the tools on Windows. We'll become much more familiar with the .NET driver application in the remainder of this course. So just tune in, and we'll learn more here in just a moment. Thank you.